Kia ora, haere mai, namaste, talofa. Big it up to yourself and big it up to the Niche Cage, because we are here in honor of Aotearoa Sport. We are here for Aotearoa Sport, and we are here to deliver a buffet of Aotearoa sporting stuff. It's just stuff. That's all it is. Just stuff, notes, insights, shit that we find interesting from the land of Aotearoa. And we have recorded a big old Blackcaps podcast for our Patreon whānau prior to this. So if you are a member of the Patreon whānau supporting the Niche Case, check that out. Blackcaps face England in a big T20 World Cup semi-final. So we talked our way through all angles of Blackcaps T20 cricket. And if you want to support the Niche Case, if you want to support the Niche Cast, head on over to patreon.com/our Niche Case, EL Niche Case. Best way to support us, straight up the guts. You get a karma boost and you get extra podcasts every week as well. We also deliver an email banger. thenichecase.substack.com. Go there, whack in your email address, and then you don't have to do anything. The Niche Case just comes to you. You're sitting there doing a poo, you check your emails, you get the Niche Case email Monday and Friday evening, and all our content is there, plus extra yarns. You don't have to use social media. Fuck social media. Don't buzz about that. Just sign up to the email and get all the content straight into your email inbox. Otherwise, you can just read about Kiwi sports. So the niche-case.com, all Kiwi sports. We're here for it all. We love it. And we're just in service of Aotearoa Sport. Lots of different topics on today's agenda. It is a variety show, so we do move hard and fast through different topics. But as always, we start with a bit of mindfulness, but I'm going to switch it up a bit today. Just going to go for a throwback check. I'm assuming you've got a Dallas Mavericks throwback on their wildcard. It's singlet weather. You're rocking the Dallas Mavericks. I'm rocking Blackcaps. There we go.
Oh, there we go.
Blackcaps throwback. That means summer's here. Shout out to summer. And again, shout out to Aotearoa Wobbly Wildcard. Can you please kick us off with a bit of mindfulness?
Yeah, I didn't mention the Nowitzki 41 on the back of this jersey as well. The mindfulness this week, it's a slightly different one because I haven't gone for a quote. I've gone for a word, which I learnt, and I thought it's a very good word. And that word is shoshin, which I assume is Japanese. It's spelled S-H-O-S-H-I-N. There's a little symbol thing on there, which you won't be able to see on the screen either. Shoshin is a word from Zen Buddhism meaning beginner's mind. It refers to having an attitude of openness, eagerness, and lack of preconceptions when studying a subject, even when studying at an advanced level, just as a beginner would. The term is especially used in the study of Zen Buddhism and Japanese martial arts. So there we go. The old beginner's mind. I saw it mentioned in a thing I was reading. I looked it up and I found the actual proper word for it. And that word is shoshin. And I don't know how to pronounce it entirely properly, but I definitely appreciate the concept. And I thought, well, that's some throwback mindfulness there, if ever there is some.
I think all of our mindfulness is of the throwback variety. We're not dealing in
probably, Johnny come lately wisdom.
Yeah, Instagram. Entrepreneurial wisdom. We're dealing with the fucking legends. We're dealing with the ancients. We're dealing with historical wisdom. But can you use shoshin in a sentence? Is it like, oh, bro, I got the shoshin vibes today, I'm on my growth mindset? Is you use it like that, or you use it like, oh, he's a real shoshin, she's a real shoshin, I'm feeling shoshin? What kind of word is it to use?
I wouldn't have a clue.
That's good.
I just read out the first paragraph of the Wikipedia article, so it doesn't say if it's a verb or a noun or whatever. I just know it means beginner's mind, and I think beginner's mind is more like it's tricky when you get into Zen things. Yeah, like it's a thing. It's like a noun. It's you have a beginner's mind, or beginner's mindset. No, I think beginner's mind is better because mindset makes it sound like it's a more of a chosen thing, as opposed to like a fixed point of view. That's going the other way as well. It's not really. Well, I mean, it's not a point of view at all. It's like it's a fixed thing. It's a philosophy. It's a way of acting, rather than something that you just sort of go in and out of, I suppose. Or definitely not something you should. I don't know how to use the word. I just looked up beginner's mind, and it came up with the Japanese Zen. I assume it's Japanese as well. It doesn't actually say that, but it does say Japanese martial arts. So I'm leaning into that much of it. I just, I'm keeping a beginner's mind about the concept of beginner's mind, I suppose, is what I should be saying.
To me, just hard and fast, it feels like mana. It's not. There's not like. It's just it's a word that carries the same depth.
Yeah.
And,
reverence, say.
Yeah, reverence. Yeah.
Yeah, like respecting the whatever it is that you're trying to. Because what did it say? The attitude of openness, eagerness, and lack of preconceptions when studying a subject. So it's like a reverence for that subject, isn't it? It's not coming in assuming I know more than I actually do. It's not coming in being like I can master this just by putting in the effort, sort of thing. It's not making any of those preconceptions. It's just like take things as it is. Which I think that is a reverence, like a, I don't know, a sense of mana, that kind of thing.
Well, our Aotearoa sporting stuff involves a lot of shoshin, because we're always learning. We're always, open to how Lydia Ko fits into the LPGA, or Israel Adesanya fits into the UFC, how the South Central Series in Compton is not the South Central Series in Compton, it's the South Central Series in Aotearoa, and it's the National Football League. These are all Shoshin ideas of us learning more about Aotearoa sport, and we start the variety show proper with the chili bin of long lost hot takes from Radio Sport with a funky new twist. What do you got to for the starting? I believe you're actually going South Central, so good segue.
I am going South Central Series, but not exclusively, because I think this is something that has been going on for many a year, and something that reached the point where let's speak out about this. Let's stop playing National League games on artificial turf. It's not good for the it's not good for the product of the game itself, nor particularly for the players. 3 of the 5 games from this weekend across the men and women's comps took place on turf, including 2 of them on that English Park one behind my shoulder there. And like, just speaking as someone who has played many a much lower level game on turf things, like there's a nice novelty to it at first. It's cool when you get to play there when you otherwise would have been like the fields are all clogged and muddy and you get rearranged to an artificial thing. It means you get an actual game. That's cool. But also, like, having played on them, I can say that they kind of suck. Like, you scratch the hell out of your skin if you fall over. You're basically running on concrete underneath the turf itself, so it's not great on your joints. They get really hot and like sort of absorbing or reflecting, whichever one is working. The sun gets real sweaty playing on those things. And then, like, just for the actual game itself, like, the ball bounces more on it. It's nice when your passes roll nice and flat on an even surface, but like, an even surface shouldn't be the minimum required. Like, there shouldn't be that is the minimum requirement for a National League ground. You're pretty sure you can find some good grass flat fields to play on. Like, just the amount of times you see on these surfaces that with the ball bobbles a little bit more than expected. It takes an extra couple bounces because of that. And then guys are firing miles over the top because the ball's not sitting up for them the way it normally does. And it's not the best to watch. It's also probably the biggest problem with these things is that people councils chuck in these artificial turfs because they're like, sweet, like a permanent surface or whatever, and then like pay heaps of money to get it done, and then don't worry so much about the upkeep, which is actually also very expensive, and you don't do that, and they deteriorate pretty quickly. It's a bit of an issue around quite a lot of the ones I know in Auckland. And yeah, just saying, like, give me lush green grass surfaces every day of the week. It's better for the players. It's better for the game itself. It's better for the league. It's better just in general. But since I don't want this just to be a National League down buzz hot take, I'll also chuck in a couple shout outs to Olly White and Helena Errington, who I thought were the best men's and women's players over the first round of the competitions. Two classy as hell midfielders, heaps of time, play with a like positive style play, hardly ever lose the ball. Errington, I think, is sort of like 16, 17, 18-year-old range. I would guess about 17, I'm not sure. Expecting a breakthrough season for her. She's probably the second major female talent to come out of the Olly Academy recently. Maya Han before her, but she is now based overseas and intends to represent Germany and does represent Germany at an under 20 level. So Errington's the next cab off the rank there. It's what we want to see. And Olly White, I mean, basically, he just shouldn't be playing in this league. He's too good for it. He had a brief trial with the Wellington Phoenix a couple of weeks back. He played a game against them in preseason. Then he played a game for them in preseason. Didn't get signed. I was a little disappointed by that because I thought he's about as good of a pro-ready player as there is, but maybe they just didn't need an extra central midfielder. He's already had a season playing academy football in Portugal, and I reckon it's surely just a matter of time before Olly White's back overseas. Doing what he does at a much higher level that's a little more like in keeping with where he's at.
Beautiful. Bit of agriculture, bit of sports insight there, bit of Shoshin. I am going to go with Tim Southee, Kane Williamson, and Trent Boult being the best players on the field in the Blackcaps T20 World Cup semi-final against England. Not the best Blackcaps, the best players on the park, the best players playing the game, the best players from either team, and I'm speaking this into existence. Obviously, I hope that this is the case because then the Blackcaps are probably going to win. So I'm going to say it's definitely going to be the case. But also, I think that these three have been kind of underrated in the World Cup so far. Tim Southee's been very economical. Third best wicket taker, 7 wickets behind each Sothee's 8 wickets, and Trent Boult has 11 wickets. Trent Boult is the best seamer in the whole tournament, yet he's still underrated. He's taken at least 2 wickets in each of his last 4 games at this World Cup, and Kane Williamson is an easy 20 runs, 25 runs. We have in the Patreon podcast, we discussed Kane Williamson's strike rates and how he's been batting at plenty. And we got deep into the weeds there. But no one needs to worry about that because Kane Williamson doesn't worry about that. He just goes out there and he adapts, he adjusts, he deals with the challenge in front of him. And just as the Blackcaps are usually underrated at every post, I believe these 3 players are highly underrated in this tournament, even though they are Aotearoa's, some of Aotearoa's best cricketers ever. And I believe they will be the best players on the field against England. And that game is to be played overnight, Wednesday into Thursday. So we will discuss plenty of Blackcaps cricket on our Niche Cast episode on Thursday. Vitamin statistics here, wildcard, nourishing the mind, cuddling the soul is what came to mind there, and I'll roll with it.
Close enough.
Because I'm using Shoshin and I'm trying to incorporate different words with my growth mindset. Here we deliver some key stats to help you learn about Aotearoa sport. With that Shoshin mentality, what do you got?
Yeah, and in particular today, Ria Percival, New Zealand's all-time most capped international footballer. She was playing her 52nd WSL match on the weekend, the Women's Super League in England, one of the top competitions on the planet, which is double the tally of Liv Chance, who's the next most who has the next most amount of matches in that competition. Percival's played for West Ham and Spurs, but she had, to this point, never scored a goal in the competition after 51 previous games. She did score in a League Cup game for Spurs, but obviously that's not the same thing. However, this season, Ria Percival has been utilised in more of an attacking role for Spurs. She has been leading the press out of midfield, getting into some great areas as a result. And a few games back, she was in the top 10 for XG per game without actually having scored a goal so far this season. So not quite where you want to be. There's a lot of, a few chances that she let slip that were probably ones she will feel like she should have scored. That has eased off a little bit lately. There's had a couple tough games, and the amount of shots weren't at the same level as before. But still, coming into this weekend, nobody had taken more shots than Ria Percival this season without having scored a goal. Well, Ria Percival did get a goal for the Football Ferns not so long ago, scored a penalty against Canada. And now fast forward to the 95th minute of the game against Manchester United, lines up a free kick. Ria Percival swinging in, intended as a cross. Nobody wins the first contact. It bounces once in the area, and it bounces in the back of the net, just sort of squeezing inside that far post. Where are we? This was a stoppage time equalizer. They were down 1-0 at the time against Manchester United. Make it 1-1. Her first goal in the English Women's Super League. Get in there. 52 games, first goal.
Were those Football Ferns games played on turf as well over in Canada?
Oh, they might well have been. Canada, I know, has a lot of turf because they hosted the World Cup in 2015, and there was a bit of backlash of being like, well, why are we playing our premier, women's football competition, the FIFA World Cup? Why are we playing this on a lot of turf fields? Won't be the case when New Zealand and Australia host it. We've got lovely grass fields around this part of the ground. We don't get to play a lot of National League games on them, but that's because they're reserved for rugby during this time normally. If
the South Central series was to be played in South Central LA, you'd need turf. There's not a whole lot of grass. This thing, when you leave,
it's all about the turf wars.
When you leave, well, there you go. When you leave Aotearoa, you realize how awesome Aotearoa is because there's a lot of grassed areas. So you go overseas, there's not so many grassed areas to play sport and get busy.
So a lot of like Scandinavian leagues, which have a lot of New Zealand players playing in them, like they obviously have to have turf grounds if you want to have a full season because it ices over otherwise. But then I think what you'll also find is a lot of turf grounds in Europe in particular, the technology advances quite quickly, and say like pitches that were put in place 5 years ago in New Zealand were probably already a little bit behind the curve at the time, considerably further behind the curve now compared to what you see in a lot of like professional leagues overseas, what are being used. Let's chuck that one out there as well. It's not just the deterioration, it's also how quickly the technology advances.
Fascinating conversation about grass and growing grass and fake grass and all sorts of different types of grass.
Exclusively,
so, I am going to deliver some Amelia Kerr vitamin statistics here. Wellington and Canterbury got their Halliburton Johnston Shield campaign underway. Weekend prior, we had the Bright Future Otago Sparks defeating Central Districts, and this weekend we had Wellington defeating Canterbury. Amelia Kerr took 10 wickets from the weekend, 2 games, which means she took 5 wickets in each game. Decent RPO from the weekend of 3.8, and 9 of her 10 wickets were bowled or LBW, which can mean 2 things: attacking the stumps and not very good batting. I'm not sure which of those things was the most true, but I suspect both things were kind of true. And this is really important because we know Amelia Kerr took a break from cricket, but that break from cricket came after the worst patch of international bowling that Amelia Kerr has ever had. It was this year. I think she played three ODIs against England, 3 ODIs against Australia, 3 T20s against England, 3 T20s against Australia earlier this year. And they both form her worst year of ODI bowling and T20 international bowling. And when we think about Amelia Kerr, we think about one of the best spinners in the world. So for her to not be at her best and be so far away from her best against Australia and England was notable. Then she took a break, and now she's back playing domestic cricket in Aotearoa. 10 wickets against Canterbury, dominant. We kind of expect this from the White Ferns dropping back down to domestic cricket. Amy Satterthwaite scored a shitload of runs from the weekend as well. She took wickets. Maddie Green, Whitefern, she scored some runs. We saw Katie Martin perform really well for Otago the weekend before. So we expect the Whiteferns to be dominant in Halliburton-Johnston Shield cricket. But this is just an interesting note about Amelia Kerr to start this summer, because there is a home World Cup early next year. She was coming off a really tough patch of international cricket with the Whiteferns, literally her worst period of international cricket in her young career thus far. Comes back into domestic cricket, 10 wickets, 9 of them were bowled or LBW, bit of confidence, bit of good vibes on to the next game. Deep in the Mangroves wildcard, what do you have?
Well, I don't technically have anything here. I'm following Denver Nuggets head coach Mike Malone into the Mangroves here. I'm just an observer, because the Nuggets played the Memphis Grizzlies twice last week. Something that I'm going to write a fair bit about in the next Kiwi Steve update, either today or tomorrow, which is, Steven Adams there was up against the reigning MVP, Nikola Jokic, and I just found that matchup fascinating, especially when you got 2 in a row, like 2 examples of it in a row, so you can see the adjustments and all this, and how Adams was utilized to play against Jokic to try and minimize him. So Mike Malone was asked about he wasn't actually asked about Adams at all. He was asked just sort of about like the flow of the game, and Ja Morant was mentioned. And then he just kind of unprompted went into this big paragraph about the way in which Steven Adams screens. And I just thought it was fascinating. So I'm just going to read that quote there. He goes, suppose I could just get the clip and chuck it in the podcast, but that's no fun. Yeah, this is what he said. He goes, obviously part of it is Ja, because he's got the ball in his hands and he's a special player. They keep stats on everything now, and I'd have to imagine that Steven Adams is up there on screen assists. And if you watch the game and see what he does, he did this when he was in Oklahoma City with Russell Westbrook. Most times when you set a screen, you're screening the ball handler's defender. Well, what Steven does a lot of times, he screens his own defender. He seals him up the lane. So now Ja gets by his man. Now Adams is sealing his defender, and now it's just an open lane. So we need to find a way to move that mountain. We need to get him out of the paint, not let him seal us, so we can have a body at the rim. He's taken that help away. I went and looked at the replays of those 2 games and just clipped out a bunch of stuff of him, like just whenever Steven Adams was screening, leading to a Denver shot, just all the notable ones. And I'm going to try get like try chuck that all together, do like a supercut or something for the thing, so I got like extended evidence, not just of the big crunchy ones where like he leaves Aaron Gordon flat on his ass, but the simple ones where it's just keep Jokic out of the way by doing exactly what Malone was saying there, of just like Ja Morant is so quick, he can beat his man just in a sprint race. He doesn't even have to get around him. He can just run like faster than him. So then to stop the help defender by coming over, because Adams isn't just screening at the like where the action is happening, he's screening sort of further down the play that hasn't unfolded yet, and just being like a step or 2 ahead. I thought that was kind of amazing insight there from an NBA coach. So he knows exactly what he's talking about as well. And yeah, just like when watching those games, like Adams didn't put up huge numbers, but the Grizzlies won both of them. And Jokic was certainly in the first game, especially quite frustrated. And a lot of that was just because Adams was doing those things that he's famous for, like don't get don't show up on the scorecard. Don't get the basic stats for things like screen assists and box out and whatever. But you just consistently do that against the MVP, making him work for everything, tiring him out by doing the physical stuff. I think that was kind of a major way of how Memphis set up to play. And I thought it was kind of, as I say, pretty fascinating insight there from Mr. Michael Malone, having been on the other side of that.
Does Coach Malone know who Sonny Bill Williams is?
I am going to take a wild guess and say no. Probably not.
Steven Adams.
Unless Steven Adams explain. Steven Adams 100% knows who Sonny Bill Williams is, and he might have explained it to Coach Malone. Who knows?
I'd love to see Steven Adams like edge forward in NRL, just like blindsiding some dude. Like, oh fuck, that would be destructive.
people always ask me about that, and they're like, "You must have been amazing at rugby back in New Zealand because you're so big and you're so strong." And he's like, "Well, the thing is, I was too big to play rugby. Like, you're that tall, they just take your legs and you've got a lot further to fall." So, I don't know, but maybe these days, now he's bulked up a lot more than what he would have been like as a kid when he was playing.
He knows how to use the shoulder, though. That's
He
for
certainly
damn sure.
does.
He definitely knows how to use the shoulder. That's where the Sonny Bill comparisons come in. Deep in my mangroves, I've got Lydia Ko. She had a fantastic win at the Ladies International in Saudi Arabia. And this is in the European tour. So it's been a complicated last few months for Lydia Ko because she's popped up on different tours around the world, and it hasn't all fallen cozily in the LPGA section. So it's been a bit tricky to follow, and you don't get all the stats together. You don't get all the results together. But I have gone deep into the mangroves, and I've pulled her last 8 results. And this includes the Tokyo Olympics. It includes a stop at the Hana Championship on the Korean LPGA Tour and this Saudi Arabian tournament on the European Ladies Tour. So Evian Championship tied 6th, Tokyo Olympics 3rd, Scottish Open tied 2nd, Women's Open, which was in Scotland, tied 29th, Arkansas Championship tied 25th, Hana Championship tied 5th, Ladies Championship tied 3rd, Ladies International 1st, and that's 8 tournaments. And there are 6 top 10 finishes within that, and we have 5 top 5 finishes in there as well, which basically means Lydia Ko is the fucking bomb. She is playing really good golf, 5 consecutive top 5 finishes now, and there are a few tournaments left on the LPGA Tour, but as I've realized in my Shoshin mindset, I've got no idea what the fuck's happening in women's golf. So I don't know when Lydia Ko is going to pop up again, but as we say plenty in this episode, we're learning. Growth mindset, Shoshin, and Lydia Ko could pop up anywhere in the world to finish this year. When she does, she's in a rich vein of form and probably going to do pretty well as well. So coming off that win in Saudi Arabia, this isn't a strange event. This isn't an anomaly. This isn't Lydia Ko grabbing her first win since 2003, whatever it is. This is Lydia Ko being excellent all fucking year. Deal with it. Question time, wildcard. I'm curious, as seems to be the case. I've always got 2 questions because I've got that Shoshin mindset. I'm trying to learn and spark growth here. So I'm always asking questions. I'm curious, like, take Aotearoa sports out of the equation. What is most interesting to you around the world, international sports? What's the most interesting situation around the world that you're kind of pondering, observing, taking notes, doing a bit of Shoshin, just trying to learn a bit more? What is it?
I had to think about this one a fair bit because I wouldn't say I've watched a heap of other like non-Kiwi sports related stuff in recent times, and probably can't say like Manchester United or something because they're not doing the best at the moment. I mean, I'm wearing a Dallas Mavericks jersey, so that would be somewhere high on the list, but I don't think they've been the best to start the season either as they sort of adjust to a new coach. I think if you'd asked me this a week ago, I think I'd have pretty comfortably said the Dallas Cowboys and just the NFL in general has been really good this season, but really good in a way where it's like, it's also a bit unpredictable. Like the Kansas City Chiefs aren't doing as flash. Patrick Mahomes is even throwing the odd interception, which is strange. You got just like it seems like maybe there's a couple of different teams that are competing at the moment that hadn't been the case in the last few years. And it's quite wide open. You've also had a lot of like the older quarterbacks, Drew Brees, Phillip Rivers types, retire over the last 2 or 3 years. And so there was a bit of a wave of younger guys coming through. It's also the first year I haven't really written about it at all because it got squeezed out of too many other things that were actual Kiwi sport related. So I'm watching it purely from a different, like, what do you call it? Different. I'm watching it from more of a Shoshin mindset as well, rather than trying to come up with like ideas about it to relate back to people. I'm just watch it purely as a fan right now. And the Dallas Cowboys have been amazing. They'd won 6 in a row up until yesterday, which is where I had to think about it because they were crap yesterday. Dak Prescott missed a game for an injury and came back and looked a little bit rusty. They got blown out by just a really good defensive Denver Broncos team. And the week after, they just traded Von Miller, which was weird because I learned about the Von Miller trade. So I mentioned the Nuggets were playing the Grizzlies in the NBA. At halftime, because I was watching the Nuggets feed, at halftime in one of those games, they were like, you know how they go, and we'll go live to our sideline reporter for more. What you got, whoever it is? And she was like, well, breaking news here, guys. The Denver Broncos have just traded Von Miller. Okay, wasn't expecting to hear about NFL during my NBA broadcast, and I wasn't expecting the random correlation where I'm now talking about that on the podcast here. But that is how I found out about that. And then the Broncos were absolutely amazing defensively the next game. So I think the NFL has been really good this season. The helps that the team I support have been mostly really good, but I think in general it's been quite exciting.
So I take it NFL is your answer?
Well, yeah.
The wider NFL?
Well, I'd say, yeah, we'll go wider NFL to keep it nice and
I do like the Manning cast. Fucking love that.
And except for the fact that they've been cursing everyone who appears on it, apparently. Like the last 6 star players the last 6 quarterbacks they've had on this season have all lost their next game, which is a strange one. Most recently, this is an amazing stat for you. Josh Allen of the Buffalo Bills, they lost to, I can't remember who they played, but there was a dude called Josh Allen on the other team playing defense against Josh Allen, the quarterback. He got a sack, I think, and was it a sack, an interception, and like a fumble recovery or something like that, all against the guy with the same name as him, which is the stat was that it had never happened before, which I'm not surprised whatsoever that that's never happened before. But it was kind of amazing that 2 guys called Josh Allen were just like the unknown, or the less known Josh Allen, absolutely dominating the well-known Josh Allen. That's the NFL for you, where crazy things happen.
Your question.
My question is, well, I framed it as a sentence because I think it works a little bit better this way. So my question is actually an open-ended sentence, which is that the Blackcaps will beat England in the World T20 semi-final because
got 3 best players on the field. You know, it's just how it
there
goes.
It is.
Kane, Williamson, Trent, Boult, Southee. I would add that the Blackcaps are a superior thinking team. They are a superior intangible team. Best fielding team in the World Cup. No extras, as we discussed in the Patreon podcast. And on top of having the 3 best players on the field, the Blackcaps have a bunch of other players who are all frothing to chip in, whether it's Guptill, Conway, Mitchell's been fantastic, Neesham gives it a whack, Phillips. It's like, I think in the T20 Blast in England, Phillips had a strike rate of almost 200. He's ridiculous. Good spinners who could step up. Who knows? Adam Milne might do something as well. So I think not only do Blackcaps have the 3 best players in the game, not only do I think they are a smarter team and a heartier team doing all the intangibles, I think they have a greater depth of players who could contribute to a win as well. I got one more question here, Wildcard. The Aotearoa Warriors, they named their general squad who is going to be training in Redcliffe over the summer. It was a bit weird because somehow Temple Kalepo was named in the Warriors top 30 squad, and he's also named to be signing with the Newcastle Knights. Really good young player. As I wrote in this wrap-up, I don't know if he's good enough to play for two clubs at the same time. But the Warriors did name 5 junior players, which basically means these players are going to move with the Warriors to Redcliffe and will probably play some age group footy with Redcliffe, right? 5 players. How many of these 5 players played first 15 rugby?
Oh, that's an interesting one. I was half expecting there to swing it back around to like a Wellington Phoenix Academy thing, because they've, taken some scholarship players over as well. And I mean, from what I've heard about the way that these things, and a lot of what I've heard is just coming from things that you've said on this podcast specifically about just like the interchangeability between league and union at a high school level. I'm going to say all 5 of them.
You're bloody correct. However, 4 of them played first 15 rugby this year. One of them played first 15 rugby a couple years ago, I think. So one of them is Eric Fusuanga. He played first 15 rugby for King's College, but he was moved over to Redcliffe this year. So he played Redcliffe under 18s and under 21s this year. So the Warriors are adding to Fusuanga Ali Liatawa, who is also King's College first 15. They have Zion Mai'uu and Jacob Laban, who the Warriors had previously announced that they had signed. It was a big deal. They played first 15 rugby for Kelston Boys High School this year, and they were the Auckland champions. Jacob Laban's actually from Wellington, though. He moved up to Auckland to go to Kelston Boys this year as a Warriors player. And then we have Dimitrik Sifakula, who is an Otahu Leopards junior, and he also played first 15 for De La Salle College in Auckland. So if you chuck in Rocco Berry, all those players have like rugby league backgrounds as well as playing first 15 rugby. So Liatawa is a Papatoi Panthers junior. Zion Mai'uu is a Te Atitu's junior. Jacob Laban is a Randwick Kingfishers junior in Wellington. And they are all over it in Redcliffe. I forgot what I was going to say, though. Just completely vanished from my mind. But so they're all first 15 rugby players. They will all go to Redcliffe. They will probably play under 20s, under 21s. Zion Mai'uu is an absolute beast, and he has the type of body where he might play reserve grade this year. So 5 out of 5 all played first 15. Oh, I was going to say Rocco Berry. He was recruited straight from first 15 rugby. Viliami Vailea, who made his NRL debut this year, he played first 15 for Aorere College last year. So if you're watching first 15 rugby, you might have seen Kelston versus Aorere last year, and that's Viliami Vailea versus Zion Mai'uu, and maybe Nofahu White, who was with the Roosters. You watch Kelston versus De La Salle this year, you'll see in Dimitrik Sifakula versus Zion Mai'uu and Jacob Laban. And obviously King's College has a bunch of players as well with rugby league backgrounds.
Can I chuck a second bonus question in here, which is, in light of a lot of these dudes are saying they'll probably play like juniors with Redcliffe. How is that affected by Redcliffe getting the NRL bid? Because I think that doesn't come in next year, right? It's the year after that, like 2023, is it, when they become an actual NRL team? So does next year just operate the same as last year, or is that how is that affected by the Warriors' connection with them as on a junior scale? How is that affected by them getting into the NRL as an expansion team? Apart from them scooping up their recruitment managers where he went, wasn't it? It was Redcliffe.
So there's a couple of players who played with Redcliffe this year from the Warriors. So they're players that the Warriors paid to move to Redcliffe who have already moved to other clubs. So
Right.
William Whakatomafe and Dayon Amatuanai, they moved to Penrith Panthers. And then Temple Kalepo, he's apparently been signed to Newcastle Knights, and Jairus Glamozina, he is also signed to the Knights. So what the Warriors basically do is they will handpick players they want to get into the Redcliffe system, and they'll just play under 18s, under 21s, or reserve grade this year. Next year, the Warriors return to Aotearoa, and then the Warriors have their own SG Ball under 18 team, their own under 20s team. And one would assume the players who the Warriors, in all their infinite recruiting wisdom, like all that shit is really tricky to pick out who the best players will be, blah, blah, blah. But the Warriors, as they have done right now, because they've basically replaced those departing players who got better offers from elsewhere, or didn't really, the Warriors didn't want to pursue that investment. They're just replaced by players from New Zealand to go to Redcliffe. And so next year, the Warriors return to Aotearoa. They will have their own junior teams, Warriors under 18s, Warriors under 20s, whatever it is. And sure, Redcliffe will have like a front and center look-see at some of these Warriors juniors in the Redcliffe system. But I'd imagine the Warriors, if they like, this is an investment. If they are investing in sending players to Redcliffe, they are basically saying, these are players we want to take forward with us. So they're not going to invest in players to go to Redcliffe just to give them up to Redcliffe. That makes no sense, right? Like, because you're actually spending money on having to house these players in Redcliffe and all that shit, or find families for them to live with, find jobs for them, all that shit. You alluded to like the Peter O'Sullivan poaching players. Like, I just mentioned 4 players that have moved to other clubs that Peter O'Sullivan had nothing to do with. So every club is looking for Warriors juniors, like literally. Like, there's a bunch of players who are in like future Warriors under 16 rugby league programs who are now signed to other clubs. For example, 2 names that come to the top of my mind. There's a dude from Northland, Tiarani Woodman Tuhoro. He played future Warriors, and he is now in the Storm wider squad, like junior system. And there's a dude, Amani Wetini Naropo. He played future Warriors this year, like in August, and he is now signed to the Gold Coast Titans. So every other NRL club is taking players from the Warriors system. The Warriors only have X amount of places with Redcliffe to invest players to go to, and then other NRL clubs take their pick, really. Because the Warriors can only...
In theory, the Peter O'Sullivan thing is not about, like, that's nothing to do with the relationship between the Warriors and Redcliffe. I'd imagine that's a lot more to do with the relationship between him and, I assume, Wayne Bennett.
Yeah, and as has been mentioned in the media numerous times, if you're a recruitment guru, what is your ideal situation you want to have? It's a blank canvas.
Yeah, fresh team, yeah.
If I was a recruitment guru, fucking sign me up ASAP. That's what you want. But I don't... People have been playing up the danger of Peter O'Sullivan poaching players as if it's greater than every other NRL club poaching players from the Warriors, right? Like, I think every other NRL club, they really like the talent from Aotearoa, as we've discussed at length. And
for good reason.
Yeah, and with good reason, but nothing new is happening. NRL clubs are just like taking players from Aotearoa, happy days, Kiwi NRL. But the Warriors only have so many spots available to them, right? Like, they can't just like invest in 40 kids to go to Redcliffe. That's not financially viable. So they have to like hand select the best players to go to Redcliffe. That's their challenge. And then if you're like a player from Aotearoa and you're not one of the players the Warriors have invested in, well, obviously you're going to join another club. Like it's obvious. Like, that's just how the business works. But I don't think it's because the Warriors are shit. I just think it's because their cross Tasman situation is niggly to the extent where they have to be quite selective, and they literally can't fund 40 players playing Queensland or New South Wales under 20s, because they can't field their own under 20s team from New Zealand because of the cross Tasman thing. So it gets tricky, and that's just how it is. But fucking, that's my Warriors run.
Righto. Musical jams time now, isn't it?
Musical jam.
You go first, or shall I?
You go. I need to fucking pat myself down.
Well, yeah, in terms of what I like listen to them, like I was we had what was sort of an excuse for our football prize giving on the weekend, like COVID restrictions didn't make it the best. But nonetheless, quite hungover the next morning. So I was looking for something that would like get me was looking for my happy place musically to sort me out there. So I was listening to a Grateful Dead tape from the 8th of July, 78, which is absolutely outstanding, like a top-notch ripper of a show, that one. At one point, they did Wharf Rat, Franklin's Tower, Sugar Magnolia, Terrapin Station, all in a row coming out of Drum Space, if that means anything to anyone else listening. But in terms of actual recent releases, there's an album called Brilliant Swords, Kiwi album. It's called Everything, Anywhere, Anytime. It's just 5 like ripper upbeat guitar tunes from a fella called Campbell Neal, who's probably better known for projects called Birchville Cat Motel and Our Love Will Destroy the World. I don't know a lot about them. I discovered this one was like a Bandcamp find. It was on one of their like recommended today's releases type things. But I might have to check out those other things, because this album here, Everything Anywhere Anytime, is just like top to bottom bangers. So that's what I have been listening to. What have you got in return?
I just had to find it because my first thing is I've been going hard on the Latin Cuban kind of music.
You and Marlon Brando.
If you go, there's a cumbia beat mix. There's a beautiful Spanish chill out mix on YouTube. There's Cafe Cubano mix on YouTube. I've just been jamming those while I'm writing. So I want to give a shout out to that Espanol music, because it fucking goes hard in the background, regardless of situation. Good solid grooves, kind of like roots reggae. Like you just chuck it on in the background, no dramas, just leave it, all good. But there is some New Zealand music. One project, the Racera crew, they've released a 4-pack mix, 4-pack project of 4 songs. They are an Auckland hip hop group. They have like, there's a dude from South Auckland, because his name's like Southside P or something. There's another dude called Ranui Mars. He's obviously from Ranui and West Auckland. So good geographical spread there from Auckland. But they make really good hip hop music. It goes hard. The bars are good. The delivery, the insights, the mana, it's all there. It's beautiful music. So that is Risera, and it's 4PK. There's another project that I want to listen to from Leaping Tiger, who's like a New Zealand Aotearoa producer, groove expert. That's what I'm going to call them, groove experts.
Groove Maestros.
Groove Maestros, there you go. And he's got a new project called Soul Sleep, which I'm excited to listen to as well. So I've been jamming that Racera project, going to listen to Leaping Tiger. That's it. Variety show. Done and dusted. Went a bit all over the place there. Got a bit deep into NFL, bit deep into New Zealand Warriors. But we came back around.
Mindset.
Yeah, we come back around to the show shin.
Mindset.
It's much more than a mindset, wildcard. It's
I
it's
said that at
life.
the start, and then I fell back in the same pattern as what I caught myself in the first place. So we just got to keep it Japanese, so we don't have to worry about missing the translations. That's Shoshin.
Just Shoshin. Shout out to Shoshin, but also just shout out to Aotearoa ideas of the same variety. Like we've got our own stuff. We got mana. We got Māori ora. We got kia kaha. We got all these things that offer the same perspective. So that's why I chucked them in at the end of the show as a conclusion. That's why I say Māori ora, raise your mana, and kia kaha. Also stay beautiful, be nice to each other, and we'll be back. Niche cast, big Blackcaps reaction, niche cast on Thursday. Big it up to yourself. Church.